Hello, good afternoon. We are going to talk about globalization seen from different points of view and perspectives. The first one is economic one. So please, Becca.
Okay, so globalization is a process that made it possible for nations to interconnect between them. Economic globalization refers to the mobility of people, capital, technology, goods, and services. It is also about how countries integrate with each other economically. Over the past decades, GATT, it's a General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, and World Trade Organization, economic globalization has been expanded, and countries have rapidly been cutting down trade barriers and opening up to their current accounts and capital accounts. There are three main points that economic globalization focus on. The first point is that more countries can enjoy the benefit of the trade. This talks about the globalization, that there is also the emergence of free trade, which allows members of nations to purchase and offer their products without regulation to the government. The second one is that it promotes economic growth. This development is as countries from the disparate parts of the world come together and exchange their goods and their services. And well, they open the doors to commerce between them. And the third point, and most important, is that skilled workers can now work overseas and earn more money than they created in their own countries. With more jobs available on the parts of the world, skilled workers will allow me, like, they give immigrants more work and more possibilities, and they'll get to have more opportunities of job. And
Okay, thank you, Becca. Is there anything you want to add?
no, that's all.
Thank you. Now let's go with you, Jilly, that is going to talk about the political perspective.
All right. Thank you, Caro. Well, in a political perspective, the word globalization is used to describe the growing of the world's economy, brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services. Therefore, political globalization refers to the growth of worldwide political system, both in size and complexity, which includes governmental, intergovernmental, and non-governmental organizations. The non-governmental are the ones like the humanitarian ones, and with global ecological changes and other global trends, political activity increasingly takes place at the global level. Politics can take place above the state through the political integration schemes and through intergovernmental organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, between others, but those three are the most powerful ones. How can globalization positively change the world? It gives unlimited access to international aid and news and support, as well as financial aid. It also gives access to humanitarian aid in aspects like the United Nations, and plenty of new opportunities to increase the economy. Countries work together to gain power and influence. Besides, by working together, we learn from each other's culture, which is a great jump to the society, because by knowing the culture from each other, we can know also how to create new things for each country. And of course, it hasn't always gone right. The world's most powerful countries manipulate smaller countries. They manipulate people and they manipulate the system, so they can always win more and to gain more advantage over the others, to gain advantage over the smaller countries, and to have total control of everything. Political globalization, as any other idea, I think that it's a really good idea, have pros and cons, and it's our duty to give it the correct use and the correct path to it.
Okay, thank you, Jilly. Is there something you want to add?
I think it's so.
Okay, thank you. Now I am going to talk about the social-cultural perspective. First of all, globalization seen from a social and cultural perspective has a lot of good and positive repercussions. in elements like employment, security, traditions, and customs. And let's talk about first the employment. Since globalization is a huge movement of services, products, and goods, it gives a lot of opportunities to every country thanks to the increasing brands, the commercial chains, and the different companies that exist. So it increases the opportunities to every person of the total population. And an example of this is the economical growth of Vietnam and China, which is due to their integration to the global economy. And in terms of security, globalization has led a lot of issues like the weapon global proliferation, the drug traffic, and even epidemics. But this has been the detonating for massive measures led by the government and the state. Since there are many countries that are looked in the necessity of having a secure country, they look for massive measures that are not only profitable. Since the moment that they involve the participation of many countries, they are really powerful and strong, and so do the results. And seen from the cultural perspective, specifically traditions and customs, what globalization do is that turns every country into a multicultural one, where the population of every country will live, experience, and see different behaviors, different ways of thinking, ways of perceiving life, so they become more open-minded, and they can adopt the different traditions of all over the world into their lives. So this is a very positive aspect, and you have the option of adopt those traditions or keep your traditions. That's the good part about globalization, that the original culture there will be always there, and with the globalization it is not alive not only in the original countries, it is alive in all the world. So it is a really good idea, and that's all I want to highlight. Yeah.
Saying another point that I forgot to say, one of the key aspects of the political globalization is the declining importance of the nation state and the rise of other people in the national state, and in the political science, in a political aspect, and the creation, reinforcing my point, the creation and existence of the United Nations and the humanitarian organizations has been called one of the classic examples of political globalization. So it's kind of a pro thing.
Okay, thank you. Now we are going to the conclusions. So first you, Rebecca.
Okay, so as we can see, any development or change has its pros and cons. Globalization is not an exception. Indeed, it has opened doors to different countries and affected nations economically, politically, and socially. So it is also that it cannot be stopped. Globalization is there, and we can avoid it. The ideal action to take is to make use of its advantage and minimize the repercussions.
Okay, thank you. Now you, Julie, please.
Well, in my political opinion, globalization is a step into the future. Avoiding globalization would be like avoiding our destiny or avoiding our future things, or avoiding things that can help us improve our communities, our countries. I think that globalization is a great idea. It's amazing that it's happening, but also, as any other thing here in the world, globalization, it has its pros and its cons, and not everyone has respected until now. The idea here is to make the trades or rules, and to help improve the globalization, to maintain the globalization, and to control it more than anything, because USA and Russia, they have the globalization and they're passing it to other countries, and they do it because they want more power. They don't do it for the other countries. They don't do it so the smaller countries increase. They do it for their own sake, their own thing, and it's also bad because at any time they can choose to stop it. So that's why the rules for the globalization would be like a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Gilly. And the conclusions of the social-cultural perspective is that, yeah, globalization is evident that has a lot of pros and cons, but there are more pros which benefit the population of every country, since the moment that the people all over the world unite in a certain way, that the population becomes a more conscious, protective, employed, informed, and even open-minded. Since the moment that, if we look or see it like a teamwork where all the countries have to unite and maybe share some ideas, behaviors, traditions to make a better world, better options, better ideas that benefit each one of the countries that conform the world. So, having talked about the globalization seen from different perspectives, we can have the general conclusion that the basis of the globalization is technology. Thanks to the technology that we haven't had for always, that is something real new. We are not only more communicated, we can have less limits and like more freedom. For example, we have better access to the news, to international aid, and seen from an economic view, we have like more opportunity of free trade between all the countries. And what it is about is not focused only in the pros of the globalization. We have to focus as well in the negative parts, because that is something in which we can work, that we can make better, and we can abolish the negative parts of the globalization. So that's all. Thank you.